1, 2,
Standing
go.
by.
Hey everybody, you're listening to the Comic Book Bears podcast. I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Steve Morey.
I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
And we are your hairy, heavy homos that talk about comic books, but you don't have to be a hairy, heavy homo to listen in. And we're coming to you on May 4th. So everybody, happy Star Wars Day. And may the 4th be with you.
And with you.
And also with you.
It would just be wrong to do something without Craig and Mike, so we'll do something down the road. Maybe I was thinking maybe the Ahsoka premiere.
Oh, that'd be good.
That'd be a good one. That's in August.
That might be a good one. Yeah, that might be a good one to reconvene our little adjuncts there in the Star Wars universe.
We've also got we've had like a glut of Star Wars stuff this year already.
Yeah,
with Disney Plus. In fact, today, May 4th, they dropped the second season of Visions.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't watched yet, but this one's actually pretty cool because they where the first season was all anime, the second season is it's still animated, but they put it out to studios all over the world in very different styles. They've got an Aardman one, they've got a Korean one, they've got an
Irish
studio. Yeah, it's just everybody's interpretation, which is really a really cool concept, and that's all available today.
Chicken nuggies.
Yeah.
My favorite thing about today is it's every year on this day. I'm still surprised. I don't have any Star Wars shirts. Like I went to get a Star Wars shirt out of my closet to wear on the show, like I did last year when we were also recorded on May the 4th last year, and I don't have a Star Wars shirt.
Yep, that's interesting.
I just never buy them.
What were you going to say, Steve?
Well, I was just going to say it's like that can be easily remedied. Well,
oh, no, that's good. I just
you have to know who you're talking to here.
We'll take care of that.
I never really find any I like. So it's one of those things.
I do have to say that at least 10% of the Star Wars shirts I own are courtesy of Steve. So.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But and it's also a day where there's the people who hate Star Wars probably have a lousy day on social media. But we shouldn't care about them too much, because
we don't care about them ever. So
because they probably all sell drugs to children, and they're gonna die sad and alone. So
it's true. It's true. I read it on the internet. It has to be.
I just don't understand.
And now it's been repeated on a podcast, so therefore.
Yeah. And I also have to say, I got a haircut, and I feel so good about it.
You look good.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
You really do. You look great. And
I agree.
Our counterpart over here also, I noticed, got his hairs cuts.
Yes.
All of them. And also looks dapper.
I haven't gotten I didn't style it yet this evening because I literally just got it about 2 hours ago. But
we were both
nice and short.
Very much in need of one, Steve.
Yeah, it was very shaggy. And when it gets shaggy, it gets hard to do anything with. So,
well, both of you look very dapper. I gotta say.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And more than looking dapper, we feel dapper.
And
we do feel dapper.
We do. I am in a surprisingly good mood for no reason. Have you ever been in that headspace where you're in a good mood, but there really wasn't a trigger to send you off on that good mood? There wasn't like a bundle of good news or anything like that. Just feeling okay.
Every once in a while, the endorphins and the serotonin just hit right. So
just feeling good today.
I feel that way every once in a while, but it's usually after I go to the gym. So
that might be part of it because I've started going to the gym on a regular basis, so that might be part of it. Yeah. Well, something else that always makes me happy is talking comic books, and that's what we're going to do tonight. And before we launch into our regular roundtable, we have some news, which will sound so much better on the audio version. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so Steve, why don't you bring us up to speed on some recent developments in the comic world?
So we'll go with like the easiest one first, and just sort of like, hey, we're going to be talking about it next time a little bit more in depth. But tonight is May 4th, also the premiere of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 in the US. I think UK's already gotten it, but yeah. So we'll.
There were some advanced screenings last night too.
Oh, were there? Yeah.
Kind of super surprises.
There were,
yeah,
and also combined screenings where people are getting like 1, 2,
and 3,
as well.
Yeah, so there were a couple
long day, but
so I want to know. Let's dig into this just a little bit. I'm going to see it tomorrow night. I'm going for margaritas with my husband, and then we're going to go see the movie. When are you gentlemen going to see it?
Well, first of all, Caleb, you've been on this show for a number of years at this point, and you should know we don't call them margaritas.
Margs.
No, they are margaritas.
Margarita. Okay, so we're going. Sorry, that is my fault. That is true. I've both listened and done the show long enough.
Okay,
forgive me.
But
we are going for margaritas tomorrow afternoon.
There you
go. Because you got to do your hand like this. You got to get the wrist flip.
Yeah.
And then we are going to see it at a local theater. I'm kind of excited. I should have a short-ish work day. I've got to travel a little bit, but I'm giving an EEOC presentation, doing some education stuff, and then coming home. Fingers crossed, I'll get home like before I would normally get off work. And then I'm going to go imbibe alcohol and go see this. What about you guys? When are you going to see it?
Well, since I'll be in Indiana this weekend,
okay.
I probably won't be seeing it until I get back. Maybe Monday night, depending on how late we are, or possibly on Tuesday, but definitely seeing it early in the week.
I may see it this upcoming Tuesday. I may see it the following Tuesday. I have been very, very careful about going to movies and avoiding crowds. So it will definitely be in time for our next show, which will be in 2 weeks, because that's when we will talk about it. That's the plan. We normally do it on the first weekend, or the first show after its release. But since I was totally anticipating that both of you gentlemen would be seeing it tonight, and we would have had to postpone the show or do something.
Never.
So, dude, it's happened like 3 times.
I know it's happened like 3 times.
My better half is the one who buys our movie tickets, and so I just go when he tells me to go. So I have no control over this. I just want a hot dog. If he tells me, hey, we're going to the movie that's this, I say, can I have a hot dog? He says yes, and I'm happy.
Okay.
There you go.
And
Theater by Me has $1 hot dogs.
Oh, are they good sized?
They used to be.
Okay.
Used to be. But as time has gone on, they've gotten smaller and smaller, and the quality has really dropped. So it's been frustrating. But like the $1 hot dog, you just can't eat that. You just can't. I'll get like 5.
That's like Costco. That's like a Costco dog. Yeah,
but they're not even Costco good.
Oh, I mean, dude, we have a Costco right. So a few things hot dog related. Wiener territory here, guys. So we have a Costco right down the street. We have a membership, and we go all the time. Still yet to have a Costco dog. I need to. Got to fix that. And then also, like I take my hot dog seriously. Like that's my movie food. I don't get the popcorn anymore. I get hot dogs, and I love them. We went and saw Mario not too long ago, and the theater was out of hot dogs. Just jacked up my whole experience. Just it was terrible. But I digress. That's my movie food. So I don't know about you.
Yeah, I'm also in the capital of deep fried hot dogs, and there's nothing like a North Jersey hot dog. There is nothing like it.
I'm not familiar with this concept.
Someday, I'll
the Southerners are confused about something that's deep fried. This is odd.
I know.
It is very strange.
Deep fried hot dogs. There's one place called Rutt's Hut, and if you ever seen me on Facebook, you'll see like I check in whenever I can, even though it's an hour away now. And they have 2 varieties of hot dogs, and it's not on the menu. You just have to know about this. They have In-N-Outs and they have Rippers. The In-N-Outs, they don't spend too much time in the water. I mean, in the boiling, boiling water. But the Rippers will stay long enough so that the casings rip. And they are really, really delicious. And there's other hot dog places. There was a place, Callahan's, where the hot dogs were like this. I mean, they were huge. Unfortunately, that only survives now as a food truck, which isn't that uncommon nowadays. I mean, there's a lot of
it's getting more and more popular
that have gone that route. But between Callahan's and Cubby's and the Hot Grill and Johnny and Angie's, which has a parking spot reserved for Elvis, which is the coolest thing. It's a good place if you love hot dogs. I'll tell you that.
I'm on my way. Number one. Number two. Back to the movie though. I want to know how you guys kind of are feeling about this, because I was thinking about this. I'm always excited when a new Marvel movie comes out. I'm not one of those people. It's like, oh, superhero fatigue. No, like I love this soap opera that we're getting in film, and I've loved seeing the Guardians and the things that they've been in the past few movies. It's been fun seeing them. But then I remembered I didn't particularly care for Guardians 2. I was not crazy about it. Mm-hmm. And this is James Gunn's swan song from Marvel as he jumps over and starts taking over DC. Yeah. So I'm tentatively excited about it. I just really hope it goes in a little bit of a different direction than 2 did. Yeah. Personally, because I just didn't cotton. I'm borrowing your phrase that I love. I didn't cotton to Guardians 2.
Which is a Southern phrase, so that's really
no. My dad says it all the time. Yeah, and you just reminded me of
New
it.
Jersey, yeah.
Cool. But so how are you guys feeling about it? What are you expecting? How I mean, obviously, I know we're positive people, so we go in wanting to like something.
Well, I think from the footage we've seen, I think there's going to be more serious elements than we've seen in the previous 2. Even though the stakes were really pretty high in the second one.
Yeah.
I'm with you, Caleb. I didn't dislike 2, but I didn't think it gelled in the manner that I think Gunn intended. It was like the balance was off in the second one for somehow. The first one, though, is one of my top 5 comic book movies of all time.
I love it. I think it's fantastic.
It's just a joy from start to finish, an absolute joy. And I'll be sad to see these actors in these roles go. I will because again, it's Guardians, but it's not just the 3 films. They've been presences in Thor films and Avengers films, so and their own. I'm just now remembering the Christmas special. Christmas special. I'm really gonna miss seeing these characters in this format.
Well, are we losing the characters, or are we just losing James Gunn? Maybe I missed that.
I think we're losing
some of the characters.
Yeah,
okay.
Some of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
They actually said, at least actor wise, Zoe Saldana's finished with the role, and
I figured
so
that.
is. So is Dave Bautista. He's finished.
Yeah, well, also with that, take it with a grain of salt. I mean, if that was the case, if people stuck to their guns, then we wouldn't have had, Connery as Bond at age 43. Things happen.
Maybe.
Maybe. But
I don't know.
It's definitely the end of this storyline.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the fact that they're actually getting a chance to finish it.
Yeah.
That James Gunn is getting his chapters 1, 2, and 3, or his volumes 1, 2, and 3, and he's done with it. He's like, this is, I did what I wanted to do. Hopefully, hopefully, he got to do everything he wanted to do with these characters. But I think. And I'm hoping, again, 2 was not my favorite, especially compared to the first one. But I think with the third one, we might get a little bit more of those story beats that I think we were hoping for, or that I was hoping for in the second and first one. More with Cosmo, more with Mantis being a badass. Just a lot of additional stuff that we didn't really necessarily get to see a lot of, even in the Avengers like Endgame and Infinity War, because again, half the cast disappeared. We're pretty much vaporized for most of those two movies. So, well, for the last movie, but just weren't huge players in the other movie either. I'm hopeful that I will very much enjoy it. I'm also looking forward to crying my eyes out because it looks like there's going to be some emotional stuff with Rocket and Groot and everybody. So that'll be good. But yeah.
Okay. Well, what else? What else you got to say?
So we also have some congratulatory news, I guess, for and we'll get to the good news, and then we'll get to the less good news in the comic publishing world. But Jim Lee, he's been kind of on top of DC for the past couple of years now, and he just got promoted officially to president. So that makes him chief creative officer, president of DC, and publisher as well. So he now has like his main report still is the head of WB creative marketing products or creative products. So he's basically, I think he's been more or less president of DC anyway since the DO was out, and I think Jeff Johns has been more focused elsewhere. So I'm not sure if this really is much of a difference to his day-to-day, or just something else that he's putting on his business cards.
It's the least
surprising, if he has business cards.
Least surprising surprise ever. I mean,
yeah.
And you know what?
I don't have.
You say that, Caleb, but then I think of the misstep that they had in bringing in Don Cherry. I agree and I sort of don't agree because with the upheaval that is present right now with Warner's and really the entertainment industry in full, and that touches on another news item we'll talk about. Lee has a very good reputation for delegating, and letting the delegates run with it, and he was the main one responsible for Marie Javin's promotion, and supposedly he's been working very closely with Joshua Williamson, who's kind of like in the role that Johns was a little bit.
Yeah.
So I don't think you're gonna see any kind of sizable change with the tone of DC. Since the dawn of DC wheels are already rolling. But a non-surprise surprise, but surprise for me.
It's a logical choice. I mean, and I think it's a safe choice. Honestly, it's both logical and safe.
Yeah.
So,
and then our less happy publisher news, and this is again, Bill, you just mentioned it. We've had a lot of upheaval lately with several pretty well-known publishers. Aftershock being one of them. But IDW, unfortunately, this week had to lay off 39% of its entire workforce. So I think they completely eliminated their marketing and publicity group, their PR team. They're all gone, and they also replaced their CEO. They got rid of, I believe, Howard Jonas was the chairman. No. Howard Alan Grafman, I believe. Was the I believe the chairman originally, and now it's Davide Jonas, who is the CEO, who has been named new CEO, who is the son of Howard Jonas, who I believe maybe he's the chairman. So Howard Jonas is the chairman of IDW's board. The original CEO is out, and Davide is in. So Davide Jonas is the new CEO there. So, maybe a good thing. I mean, they're going to save a lot of money with this, but I mean, comic publishers kind of live and die on their promotions and on people seeing what they have out there. And I think, Bill, we were talking about what licenses they still have, and they really they've got a couple. They've got they've got Sonic the Hedgehog, they've got My Little Pony, they've got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which are always kind of like a but you were mentioning if they're part of Hasbro, then they're going away.
Well, that's My Little Pony. The My Little Pony agreement was different from the Hasbro agreement that brought in. There were two agreements. The one with Hasbro for G.I. Joe and Transformers, and the other smaller imprints like Action Man and ROM and stuff. That was on one contract, and My Little Pony was on its separate contract. Though My Little Pony is a Hasbro property, so it'll eventually go. It just is lasting a little longer than the other two. They also have
and it's a big seller for them, and has been a big seller for them.
Yeah, they also have Star Trek.
They do have Star Trek.
Even My Little Pony is well past its its peak of comic book sales. Though the one thing that does work in IDW's advantage is the licensed properties do a little better in the advanced solicits than original works generally, at least on that second tier of publishers. So it might keep them afloat a little bit, but you could see it if you read previews. IDW something's up because it went from the front to the back,
way back.
And I think in the last solicit that it was like one cover out of like 22 books that they solicited where you actually had the cover image.
It was pretty small. I was kind of surprised. So
I wouldn't be surprised since it's an entity that really doesn't have much of its own IP. I think probably the biggest one is participation in this 30 Days of Night. I don't anticipate IDW as a publisher on its own. Let's put it that way, because mergers are very possible. But I just don't see it because there's no breakout book. I can't think of any IDW book that's been,
not a current title. No,
I don't even know if there's a single IDW book on my pull list right now, and I've got like 40 books on my pull list.
Yeah,
if not more.
I mean, I'll pick up something if it looks interesting.
I went all in when they had the merging of the Hasbro properties. I went all in on that for Revolution and the other stuff.
Oh, the Rocketeer stuff. I got all that.
I got the Rocketeer.
There was a lot of IDW stuff I got. I mean, I never was into the big cartoon properties, and I really didn't get. I don't particularly care about like their all ages Marvel and all ages Star. But speaking of, I got my
gone too.
when my nieces were small, I got all the all ages Marvel stuff for them because they have really strong girl protagonists.
Yeah.
And I wanted my nieces to see that, and they loved it. But I mean, I don't think I have a single book right now that's IDW, which is sad, right?
I used to get all the John Byrne books. He would just put out these small mini series. I always grabbed those.
Well, I mean, Lock and Key, so that was IDW.
Yeah,
and I bought every single one of those collected editions and special.
When was the last time there was a Lock and Key book?
It was last year, or maybe the year before. It was a crossover title with Sandman.
I remember
that was the last one. That was the last Lock and Key, even with a Netflix series.
Yeah, well, like the Netflix series just ended, I think, last year as well. So, So, we'll see. There's been a lot of turmoil with some of these smaller. But reliable, I should say, smaller and reliable indie publishers for the past year and a half and 2 years.
But the situation that Caleb mentioned, I mean, I can think of a few other publishers where I'm in the same boat.
Yeah,
I used to buy a lot of Dynamite books. Nothing. Now, if there's a Project Superpowers, I'll pick that up. But really, hasn't been anything I'm interested in.
There's Gargoyles.
I was gonna say I'm gonna sit over here and not be salty that you're not getting Gargoyles. That hurts my heart.
I'm buying it.
I'm gonna accept it. Okay.
I'm buying it thanks to Caleb. But yeah,
I bought the first issue.
You did out of love.
Did.
And we do have a quick one. It might have a lot of discussion on it. We might have to cut it so we can get to our comics. But the WGA strike. How does this have anything to do with comics? Well, the WGA, the Writers Guild of America, which is the union that represents the writers on TV and film across the country. They are on strike for fair pay and equitable pay, and a lot of what's been driving their aggravations and the issues that they're striking about is the streaming contracts, streaming services, specifically the way Netflix kind of paved the way for doing compensation and how they pay for their shows. People who work for streaming services tend to make less, for their work that they provide. So obviously other streaming services have kind of been following Netflix's lead, and this has led to the situation where fair compensation is just not something that most writers out there are seeing. So what happened the last time we had a WGA strike, Bill?
Heroes.
2008.
The last time, in terms of the effects on comics, they were kind of strange. They were all over the place.
Yeah.
One was we almost had a George Miller directed Justice League film because it was one of the few scripts in Warner Brothers development stage that went through a second draft that they thought was up to speed to shoot. So we almost had one. Strike ended and it went back into development hell, and never happened. We also had some situations, since there were writers, prominent TV writers who did not have a job, went to comic book companies, and you think, hey, that's great, but it also involved situations like top tier writers like Palmiotti and Gray and Jeff Barker being removed from the titles they were on to make way for these guys that wrote 2 or 3 issues and then we're out.
Yeah, and also who didn't understand the medium of comics. Yeah. It's not screenwriting.
Yeah. I mean, there are a ton of TV writers that know comics and appreciate the medium and do fine in it because it's part of their love of writing.
Yeah.
But there are some that will also say, here's my treatment. It's a comic book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which, to be fair,
never got off the ground for 7 years.
And to that end,
we've had some of those. We've had some of those that I've actually, Dark Matter.
One's really good. There was one that was really good.
Well, I enjoyed Dark Matter, and that eventually did get turned into a TV series.
There's a book called The Foundation that had that particular origin, and it's fantastic. About Nostradamus. Was one thing that people forget about Nostradamus is he was incredibly wealthy, and he started this foundation that would prevent catastrophes from happening with a team, and this played out through the centuries. And there were situations like they would remove a guy from a plane. Why this guy? The series of events would have led to something much more catastrophic. The plane crash had to happen, but without him. It's a really good series, and it's IDW.
Interesting. Well, hey, we do have a comment here from Glenn Pavin. What attire Bill is sporting? And Bill, I'm sure you're going to be telling us about this shirt.
I will, but Glenn, I just ask you to hang on or come back at the end of the show. Let me just keep that with the floor. But yes, I will model the shirt and I will talk about it later. And if you notice that, it may be reminiscent of a particular hard rock band, but with a little bit more flair. And I will talk about that later.
Well, we are looking forward to that. Just before we go, though, you were talking about why this is important to comics. People, there are a lot of people who are comics writers who also work in film. The
Jeff
Benson
Lemire
sisters, Shauna and them, they work in comics. They also do that. Tom King tweeted, "Hey, I've been working on some dream projects And I kind of feel bad for Tom because
it's also artists too. You know,
yeah,
there's also many artists that
they
will
do
either have a primary
storyboards
job or will supplement their job in storyboarding and other development.
You know, Tom King tweeted out, "Hey, I was working on some dream projects, and now I'm not." And this follows the heels of him working on the Fourth World stuff that he then didn't get to work on. So I feel bad for Tom. You know, because this is the second time that this has kind of jacked up his film and screenwriting and stuff. But yeah, there's a lot of Justin Jordan writes TV stuff. I mean, there's a lot of these folks that double dip. That's part of how they make their living. Cena has dabbled in some TV stuff, if I'm not mistaken.
He was on our show about
it.
So, but also there's another element to the strike, and that's been the transition, which ties into the streaming of a more gig economy approach of paying writers, where it wasn't uncommon for writers to have a weekly paycheck if they were part of a writer's room, and I don't know if they're going to prevail on that point. Just because the seasons are shorter, they're being asked to do more. My biggest worry is, and it's not going to attach to the prestige projects, but it might. I mean, because if we get AI written scripts, I mean, first they're going to be so good, so good that I just can't wait to see them. But that's if you told me 2 years ago that was a worry, I would have said forget it. I do think it is a legitimate worry for the basically like the crap put out,
Yeah. Well, I mean, the last time that we had
and something I think like animation for children, I would be very worried if I was a writer for that with an AI element. Something where that they are able to keep it simple. I would be very worried about that.
I'm worried about that as an attorney. There's now AI programs that are writing briefs that can use.
I'm in anti-money laundering though. I'm an attorney. We're not going to go through this again. But we had a demonstration a few years ago, and there were gasps from the audience of the report that was prepped. But I also think we're still not there. I think if we were on the cusp of that, and Caleb, as well as I do, that there is an element of the legal profession that is steeped in discovery, and we're still not there with AI discovery without eyes on projects. So, and let me tell you, if there's an industry that I think will fight it, it's attorneys. So I'm optimistic, but I'm not optimistic. I would love it if we, had the machines doing everything, and we were just, a society of culture. But economics come into it. It's not like
we can't talk about Star Trek. We can't talk about Star Trek on Star Wars Day. Come on. But
you said that my brain went to a weird place, and all I heard in my head was "fuck you, Sarah Connors. Lawyers are the real heroes."
I didn't say heroes. I said they would be fighters.
So one of the jokes here, talking about bringing up Netflix and whatnot. The Onion had a great headline with Netflix condemns WGA strike for putting future show cancellations behind schedule. And I think, Bill, that perfectly encapsulates the whole gig economy when it comes to writers, when it comes to production. Unlike a network television show where you have episodes that are filmed over the course of several months and are released over the course of several months, we're now in a situation where we have everything just kind of like all at once. So the pre-production period and the production period is all condensed, and then the final product isn't put out except in its entirety a little bit later. So a lot of these shows, they don't know if they're going to have a second season until the first season is even released, but it's released immediately, and they make that decision within a week.
Yeah.
Whether they're going to have, a second season, sometimes 2 weeks. Sandman kept us on, pins and needles for a while because it took them over a month or 2 months before they would actually announce that the second season was coming, which, after several other big profile shows that, fizzled, speaking of IDW properties, the October Faction, great show. I loved it. It was canceled about 3 weeks after, or 3 or 4 weeks after the first season came out.
Yeah.
So,
Jupiter's Legacy was in a very similar situation.
Jupiter's Legacy.
Yeah.
That was huge. It was a huge thing. It was part of that huge, talking about comic book writers that work with TV and film. Mark Millar was supposed to be like the spearhead for the Millarverse, properties with Netflix, and huge expensive show. Didn't hit those giant numbers in the first week, and it was gone.
I didn't mind it.
I just thought I watched one episode. I'm like, I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't think it was bad.
No, it wasn't bad at all.
Bad.
But it didn't draw the attention of, like, say, The Boys. I mean, which was coming on at the same time on Amazon Prime. It was doing crazy.
Or Invincible.
Dynamite property.
Well. Yeah, I would say that's another one that's just like.
Yeah, Invincible did pretty well. Second season it's getting.
Though it's not my woof of the week, I will suggest for people who want to understand the, what the current landscape is, though I wouldn't call him a top-notch interviewer, Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum, this week they had Algo and Miles Millar from Smallville and also from Wednesday. So they have a perspective of the old time 22 season, show was halfway shot before they even thought about what the ratings would be like, to Wednesday where it's very immediate. Really, really good episode. I really wholeheartedly suggest that people check that out if they want to understand what the current template is. And I know with the three of us, we all know WGA writers among our friends.
Yeah.
And just voice that support, because it's not fair compensation.
I was going to say that's the part that we really haven't done yet. I just want to say, like, because people are going to complain inevitably about the shortfall of things that they liked and everything, but I'm glad that they are doing this. I fully support them. I hope they get what their needs are. I hope that they are compensated fairly, and I hope it inspires a change in the industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, it's a little direct their
blame.
And it's also a little different from the last strike, where there were some prominent WGA writers that would not strike and voice opposition to it. Here, it's near unanimous.
Yep.
In this situation. So,
and unfortunately, it's if they did not strike, it would have continued down the same path that that they've been complaining about for several years. That Netflixification of contracts and contract work, and it's not sustainable from a production, from a person who's working in production standpoint. Yeah. Obviously, these streaming services are trying to cut costs as much as they can. Where you're going to cut? Oh, well, you cut the writers. You cut the, they're already cut rate with what they're paying. So, anyway, so let's talk about comics.
Why not?
Woohoo! Yay!
And I think it's only right that since it's Star Wars Day, that we start with a Star Wars book. And which one of us has one?
Hi, it's me. I'm the problem. It's me. Yeah, so because we are recording this on May the 4th, may the 4th be with you. So I wanted to do a Star Wars book, and really I wanted to do a Star Wars book that is, I thought about grabbing some older ones, but I was like, no, there's too much good stuff coming out right now that I haven't spoken about on this show. And I am still, so for those of you who have known me for a few years, you remember I used to do a podcast called Southern Fried Geekery with my bestie Craig, who is a Star Wars savant. Like, that man knows, he has an encyclopedic knowledge of Star Wars. So I didn't talk about Star Wars on that show. That was just inviting, like you were inviting pain because he would let you know how you got wrong. And rightfully so. Like, the dude loves it. So I don't talk about the Star Wars books I'm reading every once in a while. I'm not Craig. Let me put it that way. I am not the world's biggest Star Wars fan. I don't pretend to be. I enjoy it. It's something I can come back to and then leave again. So, but I think it's fantastic. I grew up on it. I've got toys all in my attic. So I like it when there's cool stuff related to Star Wars. And one of the books that's coming out right now, it's called Star Wars: The High Republic, and I'm going to give you a abbreviated catch up on issues 6, 7, and 8 of this book, and we're going to kind of breeze through it. I'm going to give you the high points because it's really cool. Now, the High Republic stuff takes place like years and years and years before, Return of the Jedi and Empire Strikes Back and all that fun stuff. So this is the old school, like pre-Republic stuff when the Republic was at its best, right? And when the Jedi Order was strong and it was widespread. It is really rich. It's a rich opportunity for storytelling. There's a lot to be fleshed out. And so I wanted to talk about this. So, and the great thing about Star Wars comics now is there's totally a screen crawl screen when they want to catch you up. So, Bill, if you will kindly give me some screen crawl music, please. I'll move into it. Some bum 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 bum. There you go.
Star Wars.
So what's happening with this story? These are characters that they may have shown up in some of the novels or something before, but I'm not sure. The comics are the only way I know these characters, and they are on this book right now is taking place on the planet or the moon Jeddah. If you remember Jeddah, you probably know it from the film that came out. Now that I wanted to talk about it, I can't.
Rogue One.
Rogue One. So it came out with Rogue One. This is the planet with the big fallen giant Jedi statue in the desert, right? Like you remember that scene from Rogue One. It's awesome. This book is telling you how that statue ended up on the ground. Like this is some pretty cool stuff, right? So they're on Jeddah, and some background to this is there is kind of a separatist, might call him a terrorist, freedom fighter, whatever you want to call him. He's a bad guy. His name is Worth Pluth, and he's called the Herald of the Path of the Open Hand, right? Like this giant thing. And he's causing all kinds of chaos. He's inciting riots. And as he's doing this, true to a book about the Force and the dark side, this kind of nameless terror is sweeping across the masses and causing riots. Everybody's freaking out. And nobody knows what's happened. Well, on Jeddah, there is a temple it's the temple of Kyber. Kyber's the crystals that they get to make lightsabers out of. This place is a holy place. It's staffed or protected by a group of Force users called Guardians of the Will. These are Force sensitive people, but they're not Jedi, right? So the Guardians of the Wills are a different sect. They're the ones who do the whole I'm one with the Force is with me. We saw some of them in Rogue One, some really cool moments, and so they're doing their thing right there. But this temple of Kyber is being attacked by these kind of masked raiders who are jumping in. And what we find out, long story short, is that it's a distraction, right? But they're wrecking shop and doing all kinds of nastiness. Well, it just so happens that there is a former Guardian of the Will named Tay Sirik, who gave up his guardianship of Wills to go out and just do some good old-fashioned thievery. He decided he was going to make more money off of taking stuff that didn't belong to him at first and selling it. And so he's been locked up, but when this temple is attacked, he's able to get out and do things. He's a scamp. So he's not somebody that you hate. He's funny. He's hilarious. He's got a little droid that hangs out with him in true Star Wars fashion, doing all kinds of cool stuff. But is not necessarily a good guy either. There is a Jedi Master named Vildar Mack, and he is the person that you see on this cover of issue 6. The minute I saw this cover, I immediately loved it because, and I think I've spoken about this before, my favorite Star Wars character is Quinlan Vos. I absolutely love Quinlan Vos. I love like when he shows up in the comics, like he's dope. He's somebody who survived Order 66 or Order 33, whatever it was, and he went out in the world and just did some shit. Anyway, Quinlan Vos had tattoos across his face. So does Vildar Mack. So I was like, instantaneous, gonna like this dude. And he is a likable guy. Start of issue 6. He's actually trapped beneath some fallen rubble of this kind of temple that he was guarding, and he's using the Force to protect himself and everybody else, despite the fact that some of the people there hate Jedi. They don't like him at all. They think that they are draining the Force, that they're scourges of the universe and just asserting their will to no end. They're just bad people, and so he's trapped. He's trapped while another Jedi Master and a Padawan named Olivia Zevron, and essentially the Master is Master Liban. They are out by, at this time, this fallen statue. I mean, this is a big deal that this statue has fallen. And Olivia Zevron and Master Liban were out there to protect it, and they couldn't keep it from falling. But they're stranded out there, and they are under siege, but they don't really know by who or what. So that's kind of the setup to where this book is going. And Vildar, like I said, he is trapped in issue 6 in this temple, doing everything he can to keep the crumblings of this large building from falling on and killing people. And there's a whole series of monologue just where he remembers his childhood and everything that's gone wrong. And it kind of takes you down the path of how and why he became a Jedi. Really great stuff. By the time that we get to the end of issue 6, the cavalry arrives, right? Like he is able to hold off long enough where these other Jedi and these Guardians of the Wheels are able to get to them. They all team together, use the Force to blow off this massive amount of rubble and get everybody safe. And when they do that, they go seek sanctuary. They're like, okay, there's riots going all around. These people are looking for us. They don't like Force users. We need to go. So in issue 7, that's kind of what they do. They escape and they go to, personally, I appreciate and I congratulate them. They head to the nearest bar. They're getting out of here and they're going to go to the nearest bar, which happens to be a bar called Enlightenment. And Enlightenment is it is a bar owned and governed, ran by an individual named Creighton, who is this insectoid little creature who he doesn't necessarily like what's going on. He shuts down Enlightenment, but Creighton made a mistake a few issues ago, I should say, and he told them that Enlightenment was a sanctuary, and it was a sanctuary for all people in Jeddah when they need trouble. So they go there, and they get there about the time that the mob descends on them, and so essentially they're under siege in this bar. It is all of these Jedi. Obviously Vildar is in there. Tay Sirik ends up being in there with them. There's this really awesome Twi'lek Jedi who's hanging out doing her things. There's some bodyguards that totally they look the same. There's a few jokes about mixing up names, and they're all like, it's this motley crew of riffraff in there trying to survive and under siege. Well, they go and decide, hey, like we're going to go. The Jedi are going to do their thing as peacekeepers, and they're going to go dispel the mob. That goes over about like a lead balloon, and they end up just in this big skirmish to where they are, and they have to move back further in Enlightenment. They're trapped. They can't get out. While all this is taking place, our Jedi Master Zevron and the Padawan, who are stuck out by the fallen temple, fallen statue. They don't realize it, but they are being stalked by a heavily armed, really badass group of mercenaries. Well, Olivia's like, this temple, the statue's fallen. There's no need in hanging out. What are we doing here? But Master Zevron won't leave. It's almost like he's guarding something. And we don't know what that is, and neither does Olivia. But she's like, dude, like, we got to go. And about that time, they are beset upon by some really cool looking, and this is the thing, one of the things I love about Star Wars. Character designs are awesome. I don't know if you guys can see that, but just really armored mercenaries that show up to wreak all kinds of havoc. And these dudes are badass, right? These dudes are extremely just rough. Meanwhile, back at the bar, things are heating up. Like the blaster fires everywhere. These guys are cornered. They are trying to get out, but there's now nowhere that they can go. And then they look around and they realize that Tay Sirik, the scamp himself, is missing. He's gone somewhere. He's disappeared. We don't know where he went. And it turns out that there was basically an escape hatch in the back of in a back room that he's ducked out, and he's ran, like he's fled. He's gone. And so they're like, hey, like, don't know where this goes. The proprietor of the establishment is like, you don't want to go down there. It's just a shitty mine shaft. It's going to fall in. It's not safe. Plus, there's these big alien like rat things that will eat you. And you know, that's where he's gone. So he's not making it out. And they're like, yeah, but we don't have a whole lot of choice. We can either face these things or stay here and get caught up in blaster fire. About this same time, back at the Fallen Temple, our girl Olivia, the Padawan, has been doing a really good job. She's escaped, at least for a time, these raiders, and she's radioing Vildar, trying to say, hey, we need help. We're like, there's something here. There's something that these folks are after. All this other stuff is just a big distraction. This is where we need you. At this temple, there's like there's hidden passageways and stuff in here. You got to come quick because they've got Master Zevron, and he knows something. I don't know what he knows, but they're about to uncover some nastiness. And about that time, oh, and by the way, they took my lightsaber. About that time, one of the mercenaries comes around and just guts her, like lightsaber right through the torso. While she's on the space phone with Vildar. Issue 7, or I should say issue 8, last issue I'm going to talk about. This is kind of issue 9 is going to be fun. Let me put it that way. But this is a culmination of all these events. Our team is making their way through these bowels and tunnels. They find the mutant alien rats. They're able to do what they need to do to use either the force and use of force, just to show a force, to get the rats to go away. And we still don't know what happened to our scampy fellow who has fled the scene. But they inevitably make it out the other side after they get past all of these alien mutant rat creatures. And they, I shouldn't say they make it past. They actually do have a standoff. They actually, things come to a head, and they find our boy hiding, and he's like entrapped. They're able to get him free. It's like, hey, kind of shitty of you to leave us abandoned, right? Like, that was a no-go. Don't do that. But now we're too far in. Let's all get out the other side together. And Tay Sirik is just like, he's like, hey, appreciate you saving me. You know, good job. I totally was clearing the way for you guys. They end up popping out the other side, and lo and behold, because plots, the other side of this opens up just outside the fallen statue. This fallen Jedi monolith that's out there. And they find these hidden passageways. They also find our Padawan dying. Tay Sirik is a type of creature. He can release pheromones, so he's able to kind of like calm her and like slow down her heart, so that they're inevitably, hopefully, fingers crossed, they're going to be able to save Olivia. We don't know. She's two steps away from death's doorstep. It's bad, but they are able to sedate her, and they are going to head in. As they're heading in, there's this moment where they just get woozy. All of them are experiencing this vertigo. They look around, they start seeing each other, but they're changed. There's this almost Lovecraftian look to them. Just eyes and tentacles and things everywhere that they're hallucinating. And they stop for a moment and they say, wait a minute, like, there's this giant dark side presence here. Like, this is bad. And it's like, why would there be this well of dark Jedi energy inside a temple, or a hidden temple, statue of a Jedi on Jeddah? What is causing this? And so they're like, all right, we got to go. We find out that these mercenaries are after an artifact. They're after an artifact called the Rod of Daybreak. We don't particularly know what this does, but we do know that it pairs up with something else called the Rod of Seasons. And when combined, these two artifacts, what they are supposed to do is to be able to control a creature. We don't know what this creature is, but it's a creature born of the dark side. It is a creature born of this bad part of the Force. It continues on with the Cthulhu-esque Lovecraftian kind of imagery, because at the very end of it, we see this creature come alive and go after Zevron, the Jedi. We don't know if he's going to make it. We're going to find out in issue 9. But these are bad folks, right? And these two artifacts combined are going to wreak havoc on the universe. So that's the three issues in a nutshell. I love the art in these books. They are not, I mean, it's nothing that you're just gonna, it's not breaking new ground. It's just really good storytelling. It's really good art. These particular books, and normally do this when I lead off, but they're written by a writer named Kevin Scott, who you can tell just really loves this, and he really likes treading new ground with this type of story. He likes uncovering things and writing stuff in the Star Wars universe. He reminds me of the type of person that would read Star Wars books in the mid 2000s, where they would have that ad and it was all stormtroopers. If you remember that in the Dark Horse books, and it would have a little square around one of the stormtroopers and say, "Hey, tell this guy's story." That's what Kevin Scott's doing. He's going old school. He's going back to the High Republic. He's taking these beautiful gems that we get from the cinematic universe, and he's just unpacking them with some very rich storytelling. David Messina is the artist, and Frank William is the colorist. Ariana Maher does the letters, and fantastic. Altogether, just a really, really, really great team. Fun character designs. There's a little bit of a D&D element to these characters and the way that they're doing things as a group. You get some of these kind of D&D tropes, but it's really, really, really well done. It is a complete package. It's just polished enough, but not over rendered, if that makes sense. And it's cool to see this world of Jedha unpacked. So I wanted to talk about a Star Wars book because we're right in the middle of it. There's some really great Star Wars stories being told right now. My favorites are this High Republic stuff. I'm not really reading any of the stuff set into what we would know as it's still a long time ago in a galaxy far away, but the post Luke Skywalker stuff or the Darth Vader stuff. I'm not really reading that stuff. This to me is fun. It's new characters, people that haven't really been fleshed out, worlds that are, they're explored, but they're not necessarily unpacked. We're learning more about the Force and the mythos and the religion of it and who these Jedi are in a world while they were just everywhere, that would lead up to what we'd call the prequels. I just am thoroughly enjoying this adventure. It is really, really fun. It's everything I love about Star Wars.
Yeah, I haven't really connected. Yeah, I haven't really connected with the High Republic stuff yet. From what I understand, the novels are very good.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of the teams work very close together in that development. And we do have a Disney Plus series. That's the first one that's going to be set in the High Republic era. This is also the second ongoing series, right, Steve?
Yep.
For High Republic, it had
the second, the
it's
first one
the second
and
volume.
This one, it's kind of the second volume, but it's also kind of like the -1 volume because it takes place, I believe, 50 years prior to the first volume.
Yeah.
And in volume 3, that's when we're going to be getting back to what happened at the end of the volume 1, which is the space station. I forget the name of it, but that crashes. It's destroyed by the Nile and smashes into the planet. And so now in volume 3, we'll get to see the aftermath of that. But this volume is going back even further to well before that actually, happened.
Yeah.
I've been reading it. We do have actually David joining us. Hello, David. Hello. Thank you for coming by. Monomyth comes out this month. Anyway, I've been reading some of the High Republic. I kind of paused it a little bit because I didn't realize because I didn't pay attention to the solicits as much that this was not going to give us the continuation. This volume doesn't continue the story from the previous volume, and I was kind of like, I want to read that. I want to read that because it was a really exciting way to end that first volume. But I, listening to you, Caleb, I think I'm going to go back and reread it. He's kind of woofy, but anyway,
he is. He's very woofy. Yeah, Daddy could get it.
Hits all those buttons. which is nice to see in a Star Wars property.
Yeah. There's a spin-off series called it's Star Wars The High Republic, The Blade. It's also excellent. I am really it's almost like, what if Hellboy was a Jedi? Like that's almost what it is, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool stuff. But I like to see this like, I know nothing about the Guardians of the Whills. Let me rephrase that. The only thing I really know about him is what Craig has told me, because he kind of, he's unpacked it for me. He's kind of fleshed it out, told me kind of who they were and what their deal was, and how they're not Jedi, but they're also Force users and this, that, and the other. It's really cool to see these two sects. It's really cool to see these two different religious entities based around the same thing, who are both at odds with one another and dependent on one another. Like there's a mutual respect, but not necessarily a like there. Yeah. And that is neat to see. It kind of makes you think about the triangle of literary stress. You've got these three elements that are at odds with one another. And it just kind of opens it up for more, including this idea that the keepers of the will, or people who believe in the wills, or who that part, really don't like the Jedi. Like they really, they're almost libertarian in that stance. And so it's fun to see a good writer play with that.
Yeah. And I think I also go ahead, Steve, because
I was just going to say, like, that kind of that kind of section of the Force, people have been looking a little bit more at that, and that sort of gray or a third path, which is what obviously Ahsoka is going to be dealing with, that series when that comes out. But it's something where it's a little bit more complex than just dark side, light side, Jedi and Sith, and that's it. That's all we're dealing with.
It's not binary, and I appreciate
there's plenty of other sort of third path, fourth path, fifth path kind of ways of looking at the Force. It's very interesting. It makes it more complex than just bad guy, good guy, white hat, black hat.
And the last thing I would say is, Caleb, if your suspicions about Kevin Scott are pretty much correct, if going by his interviews during Star Wars Celebration. So I would recommend you hit some of those live streams. I think you'd enjoy.
Okay.
Some of his viewpoints. And again, the High Republic office is one that works very closely together.
Yeah.
And cool.
I can't imagine
what is world building. It's a very different origin than we had previously in the extended universe with the Dawn of the Force. So
yeah. You got to be like, I can't imagine the stress that comes with being a Star Wars writer. Like, you got to know your stuff. You got to know it.
Right? I think I'm going to disagree with you on that.
Okay.
Only because there is such a support system in place to aid you with that.
That's true.
That I don't think there are many franchises that provide that benefit to the author.
That's fair.
It's funny because we were talking before about writers' rooms for television series, and a lot of the Star Wars departments effectively are writers' rooms. So I imagine there's a lot of input. I imagine there's some writers that are steeped in continuity, and others that aren't as much because they were involved in another project and they saw something that would come. And so I will disagree with you on that point. I'm not saying he isn't, but I think if you were a writer and you didn't have the benefit of knowing continuity in and out, I think you're in good hands if you are part of that particular.
Yeah. I'm just saying, if you get something wrong, though, the fans are going to tell you about it.
Oh, yeah.
So number one, if you do something that they just don't like, just period, that does fit with continuity, they're going to tell you about it, because no one hates Star Wars more than Star Wars fans. But if you get something wrong,
they're not fans.
If you get something wrong, they are going to lay in, like, they're the ones that are like, no, that box came from that Star Destroyer, sir.
Yeah.
Just
well, that's a particular kind of fan. Yeah. I mean, most people don't give a shit.
No. That's got to suck the joy out of it at some level.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to talk about a book.
Do it.
I haven't talked about a DC book in a while.
At least 2 weeks
on this show. I think longer than that. I think it's been a little longer than that. So, Steve, if you have some graphics up to aid us in this discussion, the book I want to talk about is Superman Lost, which is a 10-issue maxi series. If you can see the tiny little writer's credits there, you have this book that is plotted and written by Christopher Priest and co-plotted and written by Carlos Pagulayan. I hope I pronounced that last name right. Carl, he's an excellent artist. I know Caleb, as somebody who's steeped in the Hulk, he's been there for Planet Hulk and the single title Hulk and a lot of other series. If he's a familiar name to DC people, it's because of Christopher Priest and his collaboration with them in a fairly lengthy, I think, 4-year run on Deathstroke. And so that team is back together, and they're going to tell us Tale of Superman. Steve, if you can just pull up one of the graphics, the one with the car. No, yeah, there we go. This is basically where the story starts off. Lois Lane in curlers, which I don't think we've ever seen before. Figured worth mentioning. She is on top of a story which involves a senator who has mysteriously resigned, and that resignation gives another political party in the Senate power, where it initially was held by this gentleman's party. A relative of his is involved in a car accident, but Superman saves the day. Mysteriously, there's also $1 million in unmarked bills in the trunk that, as you can see, go flying because that's just what went down with this. I'm not sure if it's an attempted murder or a straight out accident, but Lois is involved in this story, and this is the biggest MacGuffin I have ever seen, because since both Superman and Lois are involved in this particular story, you think that's where this is going to go, but it's a bait and switch. Superman is called off to a mission with the Justice League, and he comes back, and there's a page there, double page spread actually in the comic, that depicts the team going off on this mission that is in international waters involving the Chinese Navy, where they shouldn't be. And there's something strange about the entire situation, and that's why the Justice League is on their way there. But something happens. It's not something that originated on this planet. It's something that originated on another planet, and there's a severe worry of basically the sea getting sucked in and the neighboring areas. So they're very big stakes. And of the team members that are there, they know that the only one that can withstand the power of this particular device is Superman. So he goes down into this well of effectively whirlpool to see what's happening and what can be done. And Steve, if you'll go back to the previous one, you'll see here he's kind of messed up. Yeah, he's kind of messed up. Now for Lois, it's only been about 4 hours, but according to Superman, he's been gone for 20 years. And I think just this look on his face, I mean, Caleb, I am not an original art guy. I would love this page. I would absolutely love this page because there's no dialogue, but that expression tells you volumes.
It's just, he's so stoic.
It's so perfect. He's so stoic. And this is not a character it's a character that rarely enters into this emotional space.
I tell you what it is. It is a Superman without joy.
Yep.
That is what is so striking about this. Not a joyless Superman. It is because there's lots of, like, sometimes we get not great artists on Superman books, and you get joyless Superman, but this is just a Superman devoid of joy, and that's what hits home about this image.
Yeah.
He looks shell-shocked in it, and I think that's the point, really, is that he's so drained or overwhelmed or affected by what he's been through that it's just
almost contemporaneous with Clark returning, Bruce Wayne comes in, and in classic blaming the best friend dynamic. Lois goes after Bruce and says, "You did this." Superman tries to ease it and say, "Hey, I'm part of the team. I went. It was my decision." But something happened, and Superman got sucked in to this whirlpool and ended up in space for 20 years. And the next 9 issues will tell us what that adventure was. Christopher Priest is a master at plot and at structure. And in terms of a first issue, because there were these seismic moments where the rug got pulled out from under you. I really, really enjoyed this, and I can't wait to see where this goes, because I imagine it's nowhere where I think it will. And just in terms of the Superman and Lois moments, I mean, they were so powerful. Both what they said, and not just after this event takes place, but also before. You see them as a romantic and a very sexy couple, and very playful couple, and that is yanked away from you in seconds, in hours, effectively. How would you recover from this?
Yeah.
How would you recover if, like, in the matter of a couple of hours, the relationship with the person you're sharing your life with is completely different, and it's a complete mystery to you why that is the case. So I'm really excited about the next 9 issues of this. And Caleb, I understand you read this. So.
Yeah, no, I've read the first 2 issues. I love this. And to be fair, I was nervous about this because I'm a big Christopher Priest fan. Christopher Priest wrote the seminal Black Panther stuff, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And I've read a bunch of his other stuff. I didn't care for his Deathstroke was amazing. Like he's written a lot of amazing things. Didn't care for his Justice League. Didn't like his Justice League at all. And so I was nervous going into this. I was like, okay, is this going to be the Christopher Priest that I really like, or is this going to be that other Justice League thing that just wasn't for me? I love this. It is so, he understands these characters so well. And one of the things I love, like I said, in Lois's world, this has been 4 hours. Yeah. But the minute she sees Clark again, she knows this man has been gone somewhere for a lot longer than 4 hours. And there's something, she just inherently understands her lover, her partner, so much that she's just willing to immediately accept, okay, you are a different person. You have experienced something else. And I don't know how to deal with this just yet. Yeah. But she tries her best. But like just that immediate thing. Can you imagine? Like walks out the door, goes on a grocery run, comes back, and all of a sudden the person that is completely different. And you immediately understand that, you accept it, and you start to work through it. That is powerful.
But I also love that moment because she's yapping away.
Yeah.
She's yapping away, and it's his non-response that makes her head turn. Yep. It is a wonderfully written moment.
And Carlos just delivers. There are so, like, all of the pages that you've shown, and there's so much more that he just nails. I think personally there's a great voice, both visually and from the writer of these characters. This is a story that it's neat because it allows some space to do things in a period of time that doesn't necessarily affect continuity. And I think that's really genius. And we've seen this before. I mean, we saw it with John. John was in a volcano, trapped and aged several years. So we've kind of seen these jumps in these characters, especially regarding Superman. So this is going to this to me also helps him understand his son some and what his son might have gone through. And that's going to, a future writer is going to be able to play into that. I think in a really cool way.
And like you said, this was the Justice League I wish I saw.
Yeah, absolutely. The few pages where the Justice League in action, that was like, I was like, where was this?
Yeah.
This is so good. In 2 pages, you told a better Justice League story than you did in like 12 issues.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Steve, is this?
I have it. I'm getting it. Okay. Yeah, I am getting it. I haven't read it yet.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's on my list, and I usually don't pick up Superman stuff generally. I picked up obviously Superman Son of Kal-El for sure, but the other Superman books, the general Superman books, Action Comics, it's not really something that
Action's so damn good right now.
So good.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
and it's such a good format for the book.
It is so ridiculously fun.
I only wish that the lead story they would give it like 17 to 20 pages.
Yeah,
that's the only criticism I have. But having having 3 different tracks going, it's great. It's great. Action's in a really good spot.
Yeah, I love it. I haven't been this happy about Action since Jurgens was on it.
Oh, I've been relatively happy with it.
I've enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong. I've enjoyed it, but
even through the New 52, you had Morrison and you had a really good run by Greg Pak.
Yeah,
really good run.
Yeah.
So Action of the Superman titles, I think, has been the one that's had better landlords than his own title at various times.
Yeah.
The Action I've been very happy with.
Cool.
It's good stuff.
But I think we're going over to the Marvelous competition for the next book. So, Steve, what do you got?
Well, what I've been reading, and I think I've talked about it before. It's been a while, but X-Men has been kind of going through some stuff over at Marvel with the Sins of Sinister sort of. Not really the big event. It's not going through all of the books. It's kind of like a parallel event to what's been going on in the main titles. And in it basically has been showing what happens if Mr. Sinister's plans come to fruition. And as I talked about last time when I went through this, he had been seeding bits of his DNA and bits of himself, really, in all of the strains of the Krakoan eggs and the Krakoan, mental, the histories of all of the characters that they, whenever they bring them back to life, they sort of take these imprints and then put them back in to rebirth them. But he's been doing that over and over again. And he has a sort of a slew of Moira clones that allows him to reset every single time something happens. So he basically uses them as save points. So that if something doesn't go the way that he wants, he can just kill that Moira, go back to his previous save point, and then continue his evil plan. Knowing, of course, downloading all the data that previous Mr. Sinister had amassed over whatever period of so many years. Well, in the first issues of the 3 titles, the Immoral X-Men, Nightcrawlers, and Storm and the Brotherhood of Mutants, his Moira lab disappeared. It was stolen from him. And so he was unable to reset at all. And unfortunately, at that point, all of the other Quiet Council members, Professor X and Emma Frost and Kitty Pryde, and basically all of them who he had purposefully been tweaking with their personalities and with their DNA and had sinisterized them, had decided that he really doesn't have a lot to offer anymore. Now that all of us are the perfect versions of ourselves plus Sinister, what is the just plain old vanilla flavor of Mr. Sinister? What really does he have to share with us, other than maybe creating some more chimeras or something? And over time, they pretty much toss him to the wolves, try to kill him off. He does get away with his perfect creation, his Rasputin 4, who is like the perfect chimera. It has, I believe, 5 different strains of X-Men, Colossus and Nightcrawler and Wolverine and a bunch of other characters together. He's off in space, and about 1,000 years have passed since it first started. And in that 1,000 years, the entire galaxy, possibly the entire universe, has been completely crushed. beneath the heel of the Sinister X-Men. Everything that is there is now a Sinister mutant. All of them. Every single creature, every single being that exists that's still alive has been basically just turned into a Sinister genetic experiment or mutant clone. There are planets that are just made up of mutant clones that all they do is believe in Exodus. That's their whole power. That's their whole life, is just believing in Exodus. And giant Exodus clones, dominate these planets. And there's multiples, and they're all at war with each other. Professor X has this kind of brain farm, the Dream, that exists, where all of the creatures under his control are just sort of imagining his world the way he wants it. Emma Frost is now the Diamond Empress, who rules over everybody with an iron fist or a diamond fist, and has a bunch of Namors under her control, as well as other sort of mutant monsters. And there's really Storm's dead. Her rebellious group is at the edge of the universe in a special storm system protecting the Moira Vault that they stole from Mr. Sinister 1,000 years ago. And that's kind of where we are in like the last 3 issues of each of the Sinister books. This story is so epic and so huge, and there's so much that happens in between, in the gutters and in between issues, especially when you're going over 1,000 years, and just the ruin of this universe, this ruin of the galaxy that's been taken over by Mr. Sinister doing everything he's always wanted. It's just an absolute mess. And that's where Cy Spurrier and Al Ewing and Kieran Gillen have kind of put forth as, this is the absolute worst thing that can happen if you let Mr. Sinister do what he wants. It's just absolutely incredible. Let me pull up some of the images here. So the final part at the very end of this 1,000-year saga, Sins of Sinister Dominion, is sort of the bookend of this. And in this, we're basically, seeing some incredible, some incredible acts of destruction at the edge of the universe. You have, let's see, here we go. You've got a Ghost Rider Galactus, who's just this giant being trying to protect the Storm system, which is that burning space station behind him in the graphic. You have Professor X's, Sinister X, taking over all of the minds within his dreaming to create this giant planet of thought that's there to kind of rip everything apart and find the Moira Vault as well. And how does he die? And how does everything die? Well, they get destroyed by Ironblood, but also you've got and here he is, Ironblood, one of the few remaining, just smashing his way through the giant Professor X head. But
what
also,
a great sound effect!
Oh yeah! Oh God! I mean, like, it's just everything that's happening. Every page is basically an action-packed splash, and it's so much fun to see these writers and these artists. And there's just a great mix of artists. You've got Tomato, you've got Beatty. You've got Paco Medina and Louis Warenick working on the final issue of Sins of Sinister Dominion. Putting out some really great work. But all these giant epic things that are happening, really it comes down to just Mr. Sinister himself finding a way into the vault. He's got the original, robotic Moira with him, trying to get into that vault to get to his Moiras so he can upload all the data and then kill it, so he can just go back 1,000 years, because he realized that everything was just kind of crap. So before he does it, he tries to ascend. He activates the X gene in the entire universe. Every creature, all 6 quadrillion creatures that are all basically Sinister mutant clones, activates their X gene to take their power and ascend to the Dominion state. And if you remember, if you've been reading all of this Krakoa stuff ever since Hoxpox, you'll see that Hickman put out this idea of like evolution of thought, that you could go to world minds and sort of like AI constructs, and Dominion is basically the ultimate level. Once you have all the power, all of the knowledge, full omnipotence, full omniscience, everything, you become a Dominion outside of the galaxy, outside of the multiverse. And so that's what Mr. Sinister was trying to do this whole time. He wanted all of it. And he activates the X gene. He gets all that power. And as he's ascending, he's this glowing force. He hits a wall. And the wall says, haha, I got here already. I'm the Sinister who succeeded. You suck. And he just goes down back to his own self. And that's it. He's failed his entire plan. Everything. Pointless. Because no matter what he does at this point, it's too late. There's already a Dominion Sinister out there. And that Dominion Sinister, he's there. He's always been there. Always will be there. Has been there outside the multiverse, in the multiverse. It doesn't matter. Somebody's already gotten there. And it ain't him. And there's never, ever going to be a world where he'll get there. So finally, the Moira dies. The Moira clone dies. And it's back 1,000 years ago. And he's just sort of like, well, I kind of fucked up. Sorry guys, but my whole thing's over. And goes off basically to be, imprisoned by the Quiet Council that has not been turned at this point 1,000 years in the past. Not yet anyway. And just is imprisoned in Krakoa, just without hope, bereft of all hope. And fortunately or unfortunately, there's a lot of other little things that have happened that happen 1,000 years in the future. You've got this Mother Righteous, that is this new character that's kind of like a Mr. Sinister, but a Ms. Sinister with a heart instead of a diamond, who somehow was able to, even though her plan failed, was able to send back a lot of that knowledge from 1,000 years in the future to her, to her old self. And now she's got an idea of how she can maybe manipulate things to come. You've also got Rasputin 4, somehow is able to make her way back in time to bring Mr. Sinister to justice. And now she's on Krakoa, which was her dream the whole time. So we're setting these things up for the fall of X-Men, basically. The fall of Krakoa. And I'm really excited with this. I think this is just such a great concept, great idea. And Caleb, I think you've read this too, right?
Yes, and I was going to say a few things. Number one, I've always loved Emma Frost, but I think Emma Frost creating a planet of like sexy bidding Namors just really solidifies that she's my spirit animal. Like 10 would, like I'm right there with you, girl. Like yes, but you were talking about Mother and how she has a heart. They're doing this really cool thing where they're actually exploring like the suit of cards with him too, because you remember Nathaniel Essex, the original Nathaniel Essex, had the club, and so we're getting that, like we're getting these key characters delivered that deal with the suits of cards, and I just gotta say I've thoroughly enjoyed this. Sassy Sinister is one of, if not my favorite things about the Hickman X-Men that's came out of this.
Oh yeah,
I love his voice. I love the writers that are working with him. They just understand what they're supposed to do. It is hilarious. These are some writers that I've really enjoyed throughout their years. I never thought with all the independent stuff that they did that this would be my kind of like the thing I love the most, but it really is. And the writers, although I'm not sure about Al Ewing, but the other two big writers on this story, they're old Avatar guys. Like I actually met both of them at New York Comic Con circa 2013. When because I bought my New York Comic Con tickets through Avatar Press, and they were doing work on some Avatar books at the time. I don't remember if it was God is Dead or if it was what was their kind of flagship book that was the zombies.
Frost.
Crossed. I
Crossed,
think they did both actually. They both worked on that, and like they just have a great voice for violence, but also for comedy. Like that particular kind of like British snark comedy that just comes through amazingly. That's perfect for Sinister.
Yeah.
This was fun, and yeah, that moment where you get the wall, like that voice that you did, the Bart Simpson, like that is 1000% what I heard in my brain, and I love that it just reset itself. So
yeah, it's kind of like saying, all this, like 1,000 years of just absolute shit getting worse and getting bigger and getting shittier, like all of that reset in an instant. But this isn't one of those situations where it's like, okay, yeah, forget it, it never happened. Age of Apocalypse, like it's none of that. Where you have like some people kind of remember it and they're like, oh my gosh, we went through hell. This is one of those things where it's just like things that came from that. They're things that happened 1,000 years in the future. Well, now they're here. Now they're in the present for the X-Men. They don't not only just have their memories, but they have what was done to them is now here. And you've got the aftermath of it, where the 4 lead members of the Quiet Council, knowing full well that Sinister has been infecting them, and their genetic has been manipulating their genetics for however many years. Every time that they die and be reborn, they put themselves in prison as well. They get sucked down into Krakoa's roots because they know they can't trust themselves. And that's kind of putting things in a very interesting status quo, where now Mother Righteous is seen as some kind of gifted magician, sorceress with with an understanding of the future, and she's going to do everything that Sinister, how bad Sinister was. She's all good, and nobody really knows exactly how screwy she's been too, because she's just as evil as Sinister, but in a very, I don't know, kind of goofy Cockney way. But there was this one great line, I have to say, from Kitty Pryde, that really kind of brought a little bit of humor to the fact that the X-Men are known for having these kinds of giant universe world-ending things happen and then get reset all the time. And it's basically after Rasputin 4 shows up and basically says, oh, where is it? It's this great. I had this. Oh, yeah. Kitty Pryde, Rasputin 4 shows up with Mr. Sinister in tow, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm from the future, and his crimes are numberless. He must be punished for every single one." And Kitty Pryde just looks at her and goes, "Oh, this is one of those things. Like, this is another one of those like Days of Future Past, alternate reality, whatever. Everything's kind of fucked up. Okay, yeah. Follow me. We'll go and figure this one out. Like it's, they're used to it. They're used to the insanity. But of course now we're going to see where this, what the real aftermath is going to be. And of course, Moira's still out there. And now Moira's got her own lab of clones that she can play with and deal with. And she's already, she torched all the other ones. So Mr. Sinister doesn't have a way of creating more save points. But, I mean, Moira's in control again. And if she decides to kill herself or take matters in her own hands, she can completely, erase everything that's happened, over the past 30 some years of their existence, and get rid of Krakoa altogether. So we'll see. We'll see what happens, because Fall of X is coming up. So.
Now, gentlemen, we each have a second book to talk about. I'm going to ask you each to please be very, very, very abridged and brief about it, because the clock's against us. We still have woofs and gets. So with the second book, please, let's keep it brief. Okay. So we're at the House of Ideas, and I believe, Caleb, you have another book from that particular abode.
I do. I'm going to catch you up on Hellcat, which is the number 1 and 2 are out now. Series from Marvel. This is written by Christopher Cantwell, art by Alex Lenz, which is amazing. I was not aware of Alex before this, and oh my god. Color art also, oh my god, by KJ Diaz and Ariana Maher doing the letters again. Apparently, I'm just sticking with this letterist tonight, which is really cool. So this. Hellcat's not a character that I'm super steeped in. I think she's cool conceptually, but I've never really read a whole lot about her. When she shows up in Avengers stuff, I'm always down for it. But this series has a little bit of everything. It has drama, it has murder, it's a sordid affair, and I'm always down for a sordid affair. If I had to give a theme to this book, it would be the theme. The theme is she good or is she bad? And it's her self-exploration of that. It's full of mommy issues, which we're used to, but also new to Hellcat, daddy issues. Yay! So we're going to see what happens with that. So where book 1 starts off, she is being arrested for the murder of a character named Spalding Graham. Now, Spalding is somebody that if you have read some of her stories, her friend Hetty. Spalding was a guy who dated Hetty for about a year, and they broke up. Not really sure why, but they just didn't work out. But because drama, she ends up sleeping with him after they broke up. So then there's a relationship. But she's being arrested because Spalding has been murdered. And it really, 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 like blood on the claws, really looks like she might have killed Spalding. But she doesn't think she did. And she at least doesn't remember it. She remembers fighting like something or someone, but she's not super sure. But if that's not enough, just drama in her life, weirdness, it's added to it since the Iron Man Hellcat crossover. There's been a lot happening. Hellcat's gone to hell. She's got some issues with the devil, Mephisto, who doesn't. But since she's came back, she now has some powers that she never had before. So she's living in kind of the palatial estate that her mother had bought at one point for them. And she's literally being haunted by the ghost of her mother. Her mother's now dead and there's a ghost floating around. She's got to deal with it. And in pure mother fashion, the ghost just nags and just does the mother stuff that just is like, oh my God, stop.
Do they address that her mother basically promised her soul, Patsy's soul to the devil?
Yeah, they do with that. No, it's that
like you do.
Buckle up and hang in there, Buttercup.
Like, as one does. Yeah.
That's a thing, and also it's also part of why her ghost is still around, right? So, but something. Not only can she see ghosts, she's also had these kind of psychic powers over the past few years, but something is disrupting them. And as they're talking about something disrupting them, you see a little stuffed rabbit and you're like, what's that? We'll find out. Hang on. All of this adds up to basically putting Patsy in a bad place in life. She's popping pills left and right. She's Jessica Jones, right? Like she's drunk as shit. There's a very Jessica Jones vibe to it. Well, because she just can't leave well enough alone, she decides, hey, let me go. They couldn't keep her. Let me go back to the crime scene and let me go see if I can figure out what happens, because I've been blacked out. There's something going on. And as she's dealing with the crime scene, she's going through and there's the muck. Literally, oh boy, got like vaporized, and it looks like somebody like broke him down molecularly and then tried to put him back together and it just didn't work. So he's just like the weird like goo thing in the floor. But as she's like literally scooping up parts of Spalding Graham, which might be the most pretentious douchebag name in history, she finds this badge. It's a shiny star looking thing, and she recognizes it. She's like, I've seen this before. I know who this belongs to. This is the Imaginator. And if the Imaginator doesn't ring a bell, the Imaginator is a calling card or a badge that belongs to Rick Sheridan, who is the Sleepwalker. If you're not familiar with the Sleepwalker, Rick Sheridan's a guy. He is basically being possessed by an otherworldly celestial being who's like kind of like a space cop, but not really a space cop, of dream shenanigans. And
I've never been able to figure Sleepwalker out.
Yeah. So, but
yeah.
when Rick goes
Just
to
like
sleep,
Darkhawk's powers, I've just never been
Yeah.
able to figure that out.
when Rick goes to sleep, Sleepwalker comes out and they investigate dream crimes. And they have this calling. The Imaginator is a calling card. So she's going to go figure out what's going on, and she knows that Rick is now in a psychiatric ward, and so she goes to visit him and talk. And he's like, "Hey, no, I'm pretty sure I know why you're here. It's because Spalding Graham got murdered, right?" And she's like, "Well, yeah." And I found, like, she doesn't tell him, but she's like, "I got the Imaginator." And she was like, "How did you know?" She's like, "Well, I just got kicked out of the collective of dream cops, and basically I got put on leave without pay." And she's like, well, why? Well, because I'm in love with you and they think I killed him. So all of this ties in together to just be this weird mix, right, of what's happening and where's it going. And Hellcat is she can't peg it and figure out what's happening. So in issue 2, she goes back.
Caleb, we got to move on to the other books. So
Yep,
can you tell us what's up in 2 really quick?
I'm wrapping out. All I want to say, issue 2, she's hanging out on the roof, where the bunny that I mentioned earlier comes back. The bunny is actually possessed by Damon Hellstrom. Lots of weird stuff like that. And ultimately, this is going to be a Mephisto story. Okay. And that's where this is heading. So
yeah, and it's for people who don't know, Hellstrom is also Patsy's ex-husband.
Yes,
one of her 2 ex-husbands.
Yep. And the son of Satan.
And the son of Satan.
She can pick them.
Imagine the holidays. Imagine the holidays.
She loves the bad boys.
She died. I mean, the first one, Jesus, Buzz, Mad Dogs. Okay, Steve, you got a book?
Yeah, I actually do have an independent book, and this is, well, it's an image book. One of the things that Jeff Lemire has been doing a lot of lately is he's been really leaning into his sort of horror era. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if this has anything to do with Gideon Falls, with the Bone Orchard mythos at all, but he did just come out with a series called Phantom Road, and I do have a couple images.
How
here.
recently did this come out? Because I think it's in.
This started last month. The second issue, I think, in March. Second issue came out in April. Is out as well. And if you missed issue number 1, it has gone to a second printing. I missed issue 1. Shame on me. I had to get the second printing. But it's a really interesting concept. It kind of goes very bleak, very, very quickly. It concerns a truck driver named Dom, who's just kind of, on the road, having memories of his, pretty crappy childhood, because he's got a lot of time to think. He's got a long way to drive. And he comes across an accident. He almost runs into him. A woman and her fiance got into a severe accident trying to swerve on something in this long, desolate road. And as he helps her, he notices there's something in the road. Something weird, twisted, strange. He goes to pick it up, and touching it transports him and the woman, Birdie, and his truck into this alternate world where there are no people, but there are these strange sort of zombie-like phantom characters. You can kind of see them here. They don't have any clothes. They're all twisted and weird and strange and just gross. So he and Birdie are traveling, and there's nothing but these things. They end up at a truck stop in the second issue, and the truck stop has a very interesting quality. In there, they see the world as it should be on the outside. Once they're inside, they can see reality, and they realize that they're actually something else is going on. And they run into a very interesting character with a Hawaiian shirt that's kind of interesting, but telling them basically they're on a quest. That thing that they picked up needs to get somewhere, and they have to somehow get it to where it needs to go. And really, they don't have a way of escaping this task. And especially with these weird, bizarre, zombie-like creatures following them everywhere they go. Also, one of the Dom, I thought very interestingly enough, looks very similar to someone that we know, who might be on this podcast, occasionally. one has darker hair, kind of looks like this gentleman. But it's a very interesting story, especially coming on the heels of AWA's Devil's Highway, which also concerned itself with truckers and sort of the dark side of long haul trucking. This kind of
God, that
puts
looks
the
like
hero. Yeah.
Oh my God!
It puts the hero behind the wheel here, along with Birdie. Hopefully, there we go. Hopefully, we can have some interesting dynamic, interesting relationship between the two, being stuck as they are in a really horrible circumstance that's kind of halfway between Night of the Living Dead / Walking Dead, and basically being stuck enjoying real life at truck stops. So I'm really intrigued. I know it's Jeff Lemire's good for horror, and I don't know if this sort of ties in with Bone Orchard. Probably doesn't, but I wouldn't be surprised if somehow he can kind of connect it in, because it does deal with sort of that weird sort of other world, imposing itself into the real world. But I don't know if anybody else is reading this. I know, Bill, you've picked up a couple issues. Oh,
I think I did, but I'm looking at DCBS and it's telling me I didn't. So I'm just wondering if I could sworn I checked the box on this, at least for the first issues, because first image issues are they're an easy decision.
They're.
I guess I didn't, but if there's going to be a second printing, I'm surprised I didn't pre-order this. Let's put it this way.
Yeah.
If Jeff Lemire's name is on it, I'm going to read it. I can't be objective about Jeff Lemire anymore. He's my favorite writer in comics. Period. He's my favorite writer in comics today. I think he's a genius. I read everything he writes, and I love it. He's especially when he's dealing with like fatherhood and stuff like that. That's some of my favorite stuff.
And I think this actually does touch on that a little bit, at least in the first issue in the flashback.
It's set in that Jeff Lemire theme, yeah.
Yeah. The one thing that he does really well that I've seen as well is just the idea of loneliness.
Yep.
And desolation, and this really does seem to be right up that alley, because long haul trucker, you don't see people for hours, if not days at a time. The only life that you would experience is when you're at a truck stop. So
I'm trying to, now that I think about it, almost every story of his has some element of actual or emotional isolation. Every single one, even like Superboy, it's an element that's there. I've never thought about that.
His Black Hammer stuff is rife with it.
Yep.
Trillium, literally and figuratively, with that separation.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So
you make me think. Look at that. I am going to pick that up. If that definitely went to second printing, I am going to pick that up. And why I didn't order it baffles me, because there are some Lemire stuff that I bailed on after the first issue, but at least I had that sample of it. So I can't remember what the last one was, but there was an Image series fairly recently that you can't say fairly recently because so much has been Black Hammer lately.
I want to say it. The last thing that I did read of his was it was that Bone Orchard tie-in, 1,000 feathers, 1,000 black feathers.
I can even picture the cover, but I can't think of it right now.
That's the one that he did with Sorrentino.
Yes, the one with Sorrentino.
I have not read yet. That's one of the few I haven't read because it was a Substack thing and I needed to check it out. May's
pretty
book,
good. It's pretty
May's
good.
book was the last thing I think he did at Image.
Okay. All right, I'm going to talk about a publisher we haven't talked about in a while, and that is Archie Comics. Now, Archie, they're, floppy. I hate using that word, but it's something everyone knows. Their floppy schedules have, gone down to one book a month, but they do something with that one book a month. It's a $2.99. They've held the line. There's not many books that are at that price point right now. And essentially every one of their monthly comics is a number one in a sense. And this month, well, I can't say this month, this was last month or the month before. Yes, this was March. Betty and Veronica, Friends Forever, Rock and Roll is the book that I have here. And you'll see here that there's a name underneath Betty, Veronica, and their new friend, Jola Kit. And that's Rock Candy. And Rock Candy is their new band. Steve, I think you have another graphic here, which will be the splash page if you have that ready.
Yeah, it didn't copy.
Okay, well that's fine.
Yeah.
It's very easy to talk about. So what's going on here? Well, Betty and Veronica were members of the Archies, and I use were in the past tense. Betty brought a song to the band. Reggie didn't want to play it, and Archie did something worse than criticize what Reggie did. He said nothing. He doesn't want fights to happen. So this was the last straw for Betty and Veronica, and they decide, you know what? We're leaving, and we're going to form our own band. And to help them out, they have Trevor, who is Val's brother from Josie and the Pussycats. And there's this little sprinkling of a possible romance between Betty and Trev, which I think is going to be really interesting if that does happen. So as I said, they've been longtime members of the Archies with their friends, and they are in a situation that they just can't take it anymore, that they're not being heard, and now they're going to be heard in their own band, which they named Rock Candy. And they play live, and when Archie and Jughead and Reggie see them, they're like, oh, damn, they're better than us. So now we have a new band in the Archie universe, which already had Josie and the Pussycats and the Archies. And what this book does is it has a brand new introductory story. And then we have classic reprints from the 60s and 70s of Archie's and Josie and the Pussycats stories. So it gives you a nice sampling. The writer and artist is Holly G., who you also may know as Holly Galati. She's Jim Ballard's wife. And it really surprises me with Archie that there's been so few women creators attached to their properties. Tanya Del Rio did the manga-esque Josie and the Pussycats and Sabrina, if you remember those years ago. I know Fiona Staples had a brief run on the main title, but especially given the audience of that particular imprint, it surprises me that there's been so few women that have been involved. I mean, there's some women involved in the new look and things here and there, but not enough. I'm going to say that, not enough. And
Erica Henderson, I'll throw there.
Yes.
She worked on Jughead. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, there really hasn't been a large...
Too many. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this was a story that needed to be written by a woman. It absolutely, it had to have that almost like midpoint between girl group and Riot Girl vibe, and this hit it perfectly. And I want to see more of Rock Candy, and I really like this. And it's just very nice that we're still getting something from Archie in the classic format.
Yeah. So Bill, would you say you want candy?
Oh, Steve, that's terrible. Oh, I
candy.
Please stop. Please stop. No more. No más. Por favor, no more.
Everybody loves Batman.
We're not ending on that note. Okay, so one of our hallmarks of this show is something we call Geekettes, where we picked up something in the last 2 weeks that we want to. It's almost kind of a show and tell. Steve rarely has stuff because of his weirdo status, but this apparently Steve has a Geekette. So what you get, geek?
I got Mantis because, of course, McDonald's. It's a cross promotional. Yeah, she flails her arms. McDonald's has a lot of the cross promotionals for the Marvel movies. We did not get the Quantum Mania toys. I think those were only in Asian markets and possibly Canada,
apparently
maybe.
they were like repaints of the previous ones. So apparently it was
not super cool.
The DC
but
overseas ones, there's an entire set of League of Super Pets that never made it to the States, and they're beautiful.
So sad.
It's very sad.
Although I have been collecting the Sonic Teen Titans Go toys. So, once I have enough, I will be sending them to a certain person. But yeah, so now Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is out. These are the interconnected ones. So if you have all the other, Marvel figures that they've been putting out over the years, they all kind of hook together in a big old line for some reason. And they have, you can flip her arms. They flip. Yay. Just like in the movie. Okay. What do you guys got?
All right, I'll go next. Yeah, so I've got two things. I'll be quick. The first thing is a book. I picked up a new omnibus. I'm trying to pick up an omnibus like a quarter of the year. So I got the Avengers by Jonathan Hickman omnibus, which I love. I love that story. So I'm glad to put it on my shelf. And
Caleb, I gotta say, I would be very interested to hear if you do reread it, like rereading it in one shot. I imagine that's going to be a very different experience from.
And it's got both the Avengers and New Avengers, like it's set up to where you're reading it the way you're supposed to, which was a thing that was hard to do when it was coming out. So
especially with delays,
I will let you know because I am going to read it. So that's I read all my omnibuses. I've got a stack of omnibuses back there. I'm working through it, so it'll be a little bit, but I will. And then also
disappointing me again, Caleb. You know it's not omnibuses.
Omnibus. Sorry, I've got a stack of omnibuses.
You got to get some margaritas and read your omnibus.
Yeah, my Martine Waugh did not do the trick tonight. That's obviously what happened. But my second thing is I ordered this offline. I found an artist that kind of does this thing. It is a map of Arkansas, and it's made up of the names of towns in Arkansas, including my hometown. So my hometown is where we at. We're right there. It's DeVos Bluff. That's where I grew up, and so it's a map of Arkansas. And I'm getting it framed and putting in my office because, as you guys know, what I do, I work for the Arkansas Municipal League, and I represent cities and towns. And so I'm a policy and a grants and legal advisor for cities and towns that are on there. So it's going to go in my office, and it's really cool.
Nice.
Special level of geek.
Cool.
Nice.
Okay, well, my geek gets all centered around one particular event, and that was Record Store Day. This was last Saturday at the time that we're recording this, and it's a circumstance where record stores have these unique releases, primarily on vinyl. Sometimes you'll get a CD or cassette, and they're like, speaking of Guardians, a couple of years ago there was the soundtrack of the first film was available on cassette for the first time. So this year's Record Store Day, my gets were kind of centered around not really. Ranges from the 70s to 90s. There's one I'm waiting on because my store did not get it. It's an album by the band Prefab Sprout. If you're unfamiliar with this group, Paddy McAloon is the songwriter, and he is one of the best songwriters that has ever walked this planet. Think if Stephen Sondheim formed a sophisti-pop band, and that's almost what you get with Prefab Sprout. It's some of the most amazing lyrics. Listen to this lyric. Wishing she could call him Heartache, but it's not a boy's name. Fuck me, man. I mean, that's talent. Okay, anyway, here we go. So I'm waiting on the Prefab Sprout album, but I did get Duran Duran Rio Carnival, which is a quasi reissue of their US only EP Carnival, which collected the night versions, the remixes of a lot of the Rio tracks. So I got that. I got the London Suede demos. These are demos from the first album by Suede. These have come out before, but never on vinyl. In one of the deluxe reissues, but really cool packaging on this one. This was the one I was the most excited about. The Rich Kids, Ghosts of Princes and Towers. After he was removed from the Sex Pistols, Glenn Matlock formed a new band with Midjour, who was later of Ultravox and solo hit status. And it's like really good power pop. Only lasted one album. And then the last thing I got is the seminal electronic band Suicide. This is a 12-inch. It's titled A Way of Life Rarities. It comes from the era of their Way of Life album in the 1980s. and it includes a cover of Bruce Springsteen's "Born in the USA" that you have to hear to believe. And it actually is also very much a mutual admiration society because a few years ago, Springsteen covered their "Dream Baby Dream"
Nice.
in concert, and then it became a single. So those are my gets from Record Store Day. All right, well, we're going to wrap this one up. We're on that road, and the last segment of our show is something we call Woofs of the Week. In the bear community, if you find a fella attractive, you woof at him, and we do something very similar. We signify something that we think the people watching or listening may enjoy, and it may be another comic book, but it also may be a film or a TV program or a charitable initiative, anything under the sun that we think you, fair listener or viewer, may be interested in sampling. I'll start as I always do with Steve. Steve, what is your Woof of the Week?
My Woof of the Week goes out to a publisher who's one of the, I guess, probably truly independent publishers that's out there right now. They have put out some really interesting stuff over the past couple of years. They're relatively new. And I've actually picked up a few of their things. They have put out quite a bit from various different people, but I ordered a bunch of stuff from them that looked interesting this past week. And one of the other cool things that they do, when you order from them, they send you extra things, postcards, stickers, bookmarks.
Well, it sounds like King Bone Press.
They give you a whole bunch of stuff. Yes, very much like King Bone Press. But it's fun. I've picked up pretty much everything that Michael Sweater has put out. So Please Destroy the Internet, Please Destroy My Enemies. His, two of his issues of Everything Sucks. And the cool thing about this company is that their the quality of their books, because a lot of them are much smaller formats, are really great. Cruising Diaries, I know that somebody has talked about this before. I'm excited to read this. And then also Carolyn Cash's Pee Pee Poo Poo has also been put out by the publisher as well. So it's number 69 from last year, and this one is number 420 from this year. It just came out in April. Really great stuff and just really fun to read. All adult comics mostly, so don't share with kids, but really definitely worth it. Some really good prices, some really great books, some great authors,
cool.
Readers that you probably can't find other places. So
Caleb, just going over to our other comic community, is Pee Pee Poo Poo, is that something that Vince B has mentioned?
Probably, yeah.
Because it sounds like it's like exactly.
I think it's either him or Ray.
Okay.
Onomar. I think Ono's read that as well.
Okay, cool.
Because that's Carolyn Cash.
I've heard of it. Yeah.
If you like sort of queer, lesbian, Chicago-based comics, there you go. It's got it all for you, and some really great homages as well.
I'll ask the Vincenistas, and they'll tell us.
Oh, the Vincenistas. I don't know. That might be too much for
Vincenistas.
That's a term I came up with.
I know, and I love it.
Yeah. All right, over to Caleb. Caleb, what is your Woof of the Week?
All right, my Woof of the Week actually is it's a woof to the future, so to speak. It's about a biopic that's going to be coming out, but that was kind of announced this week. My literary hero is James Baldwin, and not just literary hero. Like I love James Baldwin. I've read all of his stuff. I repeatedly read it. I love the man. He means a lot to me, and his works mean a lot to me. So he is going to be played in a biopic by none other than Billy Porter, who you see here. Billy Porter is also co-producing it. He's going to be co-writing it with Dan McCabe, who will be writing the script based on the 1994 book, James Baldwin, A Biography. And I'm super excited about this. I've read that book. I know a lot about his life. And he's somebody who I remember when I first read his work and just repeatedly read his work, listen to a lot of his stuff on YouTube, a lot of his interviews and stuff. And his philosophy just means a lot to me. So much so that I hung a picture of this man in my law office. So I am very happy to have that picture now in my office next to my diplomas. It's he is literally one of my heroes. So I'm happy about this and can't wait. And I love Billy Porter. Just that over the topness that he does in the best of ways.
Nice. All right, my wolf of the week. I'm actually wearing it, and when my friend Glenn Pavon did, I love this so much. Okay, so you may have guessed this. This is AC/DC, but it's Gay CDC. Steve, if you'll show some pictures there. Gay CDC just came off of their U.S. tour, and you can go over to gaycdcofficial.com. It's hard to say, but that's their website, and they were phenomenal. I had the chance to see them in New York last Friday night. And as you may have guessed, there's some rewriting of titles of the songs they play. So it was Let There Be Cock instead of Let There Be Rock. It was a Whole Lot of Jose instead of a Whole Lot of Rosie. It was Dirty Dudes Done Dirt Cheap. But let me tell you, this is one of the best tribute bands I have ever seen. Probably the best. I'm sorry, Sex Pistols Experience. You got to go down to number 2 at this point. It was sexy. It was fun. It was loud. It was dirty, and it was wonderful. And Caleb, you especially, if you ever have a chance to see these guys live, I think you'll be knocked out.
Yeah, it's on my list.
Absolutely be knocked out. The lead singer is he still is the bassist from Pansy Division. So there's a line of queer bands there, and
wow.
Let me just show some of the guitar picks I got. So you got the logo, and you got something that should be in everybody's sampler above every gay man's house. Let There Be Cock. So it was such a great time, and I'm so glad I got to meet Glenn in person and was at the show. So that's my wolf of the week, Gay CDC. All right, I guess we've wrapped this up. Again, we are the Comic Book Bears podcast. You can find us on the Twitter and the Tumblr and the Instagram as Comic Book Bears. You can find us on the Facebook as Comic Book Bears Podcast. If you want to write to us, please do so by sending an email to comicbookbears@gmail.com. If you want to listen to us, you can do so through Apple Podcasts, through Stitcher Radio, and many of the other podcasting platforms. And if you have joined us through Facebook Live or one of the other carriers of our live stream, thank you for joining us tonight. If you're watching us later on YouTube, please like and subscribe. We would greatly appreciate that. Until next time, I'm Billy Z.
I'm Steve Morey.
I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
You're going to hear Woof and an Explosion. If you're listening to the audio version, we'll be back real soon. Take care, everyone.
Woof.